Hello, this is Caelan Huntress, and today I'm going to tell you about a book I just finished reading, Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And this is a really great fantasy book that has kind of gotten really super big, and it's for good reason. There's three reasons that I like this book so much. First, it's a really well done fantasy epic. It follows the journey of the hero through all of the stages. Joseph Campbell's Journey of the Hero, it's got these mythic stages that happen in all the best myths. The hero starts in the world of the common day. They meet the guardians at the threshold who say, no, don't go on this journey. They wind up in the belly of the whale, and Tomi hits every single one of these along the journey. And she's a creative writing teacher, and so she obviously knows her stuff. So just from a craft perspective, this is a really well-written book. The second reason I like it is because of what it does with the pantheon. Moderate fantasy books, they're going to just take place in some other world, but it's the story revolves around the characters having very human interactions where the fantasy elements are just sort of window dressing. But the best fantasy books are the ones that use the mechanics of their magic as the plot points. And what I loved about this book so much is, we're learning about this new world and the new types of magic and the systems that they have and the ways they interact. But there were things that happened in recent history that altered how magic works in this world. And so to fix it, the hero is actually going to try and fix the problems with how magic is no longer interacting with the people in the world. And so this has led into the third thing I really like about this book is the myth that it uses is the myth in the story is an allegory for something that we're facing in modern society right now. In American society, there's a really great cultural wound in the African American culture because they were enslaved for generations, and their descendants there's so many complicated issues of privilege and racism that are finally now becoming part of the national discourse. And as a result of, she never says the Black Lives Matter movement, but as a result of so many innocent people of color being killed by white policemen who face no repercussions, it's creating this cultural wound, and we need myth to process those wounds. The only way that we as a culture can work through some of these difficulties is by having myths to refer to, having myths that deal with these issues and tell us about how they're worked through in story form. And these stories are they're imperative to helping a culture heal. And we haven't had enough cultural myths to work through this particular issue that's happening. I'm going to read you what's here on the back cover, just for some context so that you can see how this myth is framed. They killed my mother. They took our magic. They tried to bury us. Now we rise. This is the prevalent undertone of the entire book, that something in our heritage, in our ancestry, was stolen from us, and now we need to get it back. This is a myth that it's going to be healing for the African American culture, I hope. I'm not one to really comment on things that are happening in the African American culture or in the Black Lives Matter movement, because I'm a white guy and I can only see these things through the lens of my own privilege. My perspective on it is going to be automatically colored. And so that's why I look to women of color, especially, to interpret these issues and to provide a voice so that I can see things from their perspective. The way that women of color look at issues like racism and bigotry, that's much more important for me to know than for me to hear about how another white person views those same issues, because we can only see them through our privilege. I can't get rid of this white privilege. But what I can do is I can use my white privilege to amplify voices of color. And so that's what I'm doing here. You might be watching this just because I'm another white guy, and if you are, I'm exposing you to this incredible work of fiction written by a Nigerian American author who is very skilled and is using her work to provide us with a cultural myth that I think is sorely needed. So I read this because everybody's been talking about it, and it's for good reason. This is a fantastic book if you like fantasy epics at all, or if you're interested in learning more about the cultural issues of our age and how they can be interpreted and processed through fiction and myth, then I highly recommend this book. Thanks. See you later.